bow down and worship Yahweh. Tonight we bow down and worship Yahweh. We bow down and worship Yahweh. Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. Oh, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. You wanna join me, sing we bow down and worship Yahweh. We bow down and worship Yahweh. We bow down and worship. Bow down and worship Yahweh. We bow down and worship. And worship. One more time, we bow down and worship. We bow and worship. You are the one, bow down and worship We bow down tonight, Lord. We
Shalom, 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 Israel, and all of the Pauline Christians that choose to come and listen to this broadcast. I would like to say welcome and ensure you that you will be respected, your opinion will be heard, and we will compare it with, excuse me, with the scriptures. So once again, I like to say shalom, shalom, shalom to all Israel everywhere, all of those followers of the way. I would like to say shalom. And we're going to go ahead. This is our the Death of Christianity series. And today is gonna be a continuation of a couple of days, the Death of Christian Apologetics and Theology, Part 3 continued. Inspect the fruit. Inspect the fruit. Now, I didn't just make this title up. This title and this commandment of fruit inspection comes straight from the Bible. And so I'm going to go ahead on and give you guys the context once more. Go ahead and share my screen with you guys. Also, I'm going to put these headphones on so that I'm not yelling and screaming at you guys because I did get some comments in that regard. So if you guys give me a moment, I will go ahead and get the scripture pulled up here and placed on the screen for you guys. As I stated, and I continue to state, my way that I see things is that if I have sound footing, I like to take everything that I do and base it off of the Bible, off of the text that is written, off of that which is written. And so what we've been doing is comparing the messages and the doctrines and the behaviors of Pauline Christian apologists and pastors, and I guess you would just call them regular Christians, Sunday going, church going Christians. So I'm gonna trying to share my screen here for you guys so that you guys can see this, and we're gonna get right into the lesson. Once again, I appreciate everyone that is already tuned in, and those that will tune in, I appreciate you as well, both those that agree and those that do not. We're going to ask you to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We have a plethora of videos and things of that nature that you guys would want to take a look at, especially those of you guys who have not yet seen the first part of this part 3, which is entitled Inspect the Fruits. The link to part 3, the first part, should be in the comment section under the YouTube. If not, it should be updated because I put it in there. And so we're not going to filibuster. We're going to get right into it. As the title states, we're going to do some fruit inspecting here. And we're going to take the words, not something that I made up, but we're going to actually take the words, the actions, and behaviors of these who call themselves followers of the Mashiach, whom the world calls Jesus Christ. We're going to compare that to the Mashiach himself, the words of the Mashiach, and the words of his Talmudim. The Talmudim being the apostles of Christ, whom the world, the Mashiach, whom the world calls Christ. And so, as I stated, we definitely try to remain biblical. I'll say this for Hebrew brothers, those fellow and sisters that followers of the way. You know, this, what you're going to see is examples. You're going to see examples of these underhanded tactics that they use in order to entice and folk and twist the word and to manipulate the culture. And so we're going to be taking a look at that. If you guys give me 1 second, I'm attempting to pull it up here so I can take a look into the comment section there. Just give me 1 second there. Hopefully it will come up. While that's coming up, those of you guys that have your Bibles, right? In these programs, it'll be a lot of Bible. We'll be comparing things by the Bible. As I stated, you will certainly want to go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell button so that you can be updated with all of the parts to this series and also our upcoming series. You will not want to miss this. It's going to be about a week in coming because I don't think we're going to launch it during, the Passover, the week, the Holy Week. And so we're not going to, I doubt it. Maybe the Most High will change. I don't know. But as it stands right now, it'll be a week in coming. The title is called Strong Delusions, Ministry or Magic. And you guys are definitely and certainly going to want to subscribe, hit that bell button so that you guys are updated with all of the upcoming series. For those of you guys that have been following the ministry and following this series, you guys know that I base everything, my position, on the internal evidence, which is the Bible, and the external evidence, like historical evidences, video of these guys actually sticking their foot in their mouths and proving, like I have stated, that it's they are purposely deceiving, they're purposely lying, because they have a hidden agenda. We're going to get into that hidden agenda in the next series, Sound Doctrine, Ministry or Magic, minister, or magician, right? So you guys are going to want to check that out. But we're going to go right into it. Matthew chapter number 7, for you Bible students out there. We're going to start at verse number 15. Oh, let me put my earphones on. Let me see if I can connect this thing here. Okay, do I have to do this? Let me try to. So I'm not yelling and screaming at you guys, and you guys can get the point and all of that. And, you know, the workers of iniquity do not have anything to, you know, use against me, you know, hypocritically. Oh, you were yelling and screaming and things of that nature. So give me one moment and I'll put these headphones on so that I'm not yelling and screaming at you guys. What's going on here? Okay. So now we should be good there. Let me go ahead and hide this. Hopefully you guys can hear me out there. Let me go ahead and check the volume. Yes, okay, it looks like it's moving there. And so we'll go ahead and get right into it. All right. Matthew chapter number 7 and verse number 15. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth fruit. Neither can a corrupt bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. Not everyone that saith unto me, Adonai, Adonai, shall enter into the kingdom of Shemaim, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in Shemaim. Many will say to me in that day, Adonai, Adonai, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works. Verse number 23, the book of Matthew, chapter number 7. And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. One more verse. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. Now, the theme of this particular part of the series is identifying the false prophets here in chapter number 15 that come to us looking like sheep, smelling like sheep, talking like sheep, trying to preach like sheep. You know, how do you tell whether or not a prophet, a pastor, an apologist, a teacher, a Christian, if they are true or if they are false, right? And furthermore, what we've been doing in this series is actually documenting and proving, once again, through the internal evidence, which is the Bible, and the external evidence, things, primary, secondary sources, most of which particular series come directly from the horse's mouth. You know, we're going to let these pastors and apologists show us their fruit so that we can judge it by the Bible that they say that they follow. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get right into it. In inspecting these fruits, we have been going through, to give you the context of what you guys are about to see, we have been going through, you know, the response of the woke Christian, Pauline Christian apologist and pastor community. Their response to my simple question, right? The issue here is, if James, and he did, since James, I should say, and the rest of the apostles in Acts chapter number 15 gave Gentiles Torah commandments, how is it that Pauline Christianity contradicts those very commandments? And you will see that these guys choke miserably, terribly on this question. You're going to see all of the strategies that they use, the yelling, the screaming, the name calling, changing the subject, you know, and, you know, I'm not going to get into that. I'll get into the magic that these guys use in my next session. You know, I'll get into that, but you're going to see these tactics, and I want you guys to be aware of these tactics, because we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. These guys are going around, you know, like super Christians, you know, they're the cream of the crop, and, you know, calling the followers of the way out. You know, let's have a discussion and things. Show you this series, and what I have been showing you is documented proof of the kryptonite apologists, authors, and the like. I actually give this receipt showing you guys the biblical evidence, how their doctrines do not line up with the Bible, and then I've been giving you guys the video evidence. And so what we're getting ready to continue to watch, for those of you guys that haven't seen it, go ahead and, you know, check out, it should be in, as I stated, down below. If you're looking at the YouTube channel, it should be a link in there so that you can get the context of where we're coming from. We're going to start from where we left off on last week, which I believe was somewhere around mark number 37, where we left off last week. And we're going to check out this council. Now, what you guys are getting ready to see, those of you guys that watched last week, you already know where we are. You're getting ready to see a 4-hour council, a 4-hour council of pastors, apologists, you know, theologians, and super Christians, you know, who all say they have the understanding. They're teaching folks. They're, you know, out there. They're challenging, you know, the defenders of the way. And, you know, we've answered that challenge, and they've choked miserably on being able to give us a response. And so what they've done, you know, one of their apologists and an author, he failed miserably at, you know, giving his, you know, defending his Pauline Christian theology, and he failed miserably at, you know, explaining why Pauline Christianity conflicts the Bible. It's just that simple. Why does Pauline Christianity conflicts the Bible? And so, because the brother failed, they got a group of pastors, and as you see, these folks down here, these panelists and things of that nature, they came together and had a 4-hour conference on, you know, my discussion. And well, I'm going to go ahead. We've been talking about the lies, and I've been illustrating how these guys tell flat out lies, how they use deceit, how they are very deceptive, how they use interruptions. They'll continue to interrupt you to throw you off your point. When they're not interrupting you, they're using logical fallacies like secondary arguments, in which to deflect from the fact that they cannot answer. Either way that they do answer, they're going to be condemning their religion of Pauline Christianity. And so we started off a few days ago. We went through the first part of the video, and what we saw in the first part of this 4-hour conference, we see these guys saying Paul never taught the doctrines that is in Acts chapter number 21. My question to them was, okay, in Acts chapter number 21, Paul was accused of teaching 3 doctrines. Paul was accused of teaching 3 things that today is fundamental to Pauline Christianity. And so I made note of the obvious conflict there. And since then, the rest is history. These guys have been making absolute fools of themselves in attempting to, avoid the question. In the case of the use of red herrings, use of straw man arguments to make it appear like they're actually, refuting something that I said or refuting my position, when they're actually making arguments and refuting a straw man, something, an invisible argument that I've never made, And so here are the 3 questions for you guys that are just catching up. The 3 questions are according to, and they were extracted from this verse here. I'm going to go ahead and read this verse, Acts number 21, verse number 21. And they are informed of thee that thou teachest all the Yahudim, which are among the Gentiles, to forsake Moshe, saying they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. So here in this text, Paul is being accused of teaching these doctrines. He's being accused of teaching that the law is done away with, to forsake the law of Moses. The law is no longer in effect. He was also being accused of saying not to circumcise your children, to minimize or condemn the practice of Hebrews, not Gentile, but Hebrew male children on the 8th day in accordance with the law given to Moshe. The third thing that they were accusing Paul of teaching is that he said that we no longer are required to keep the customs. The customs of the Hebrews was Sabbath, feast days, the new moon, and things of that nature. So these are the customs that was being referred to, the customs in the law, customs in the law. And so we've asked the community, that the the Pauline Christian apologetic community, if they could answer 3 questions. The 3 questions are followers of Christ required to keep the Mosaic law? Number 1. Number 2, are followers of Christ required to circumcise Hebrew males, all of them, by requirement on the 8th day as commanded? The third question is are followers of the way, followers of the Mashiach, followers of the Christ required to walk after the customs? So once again, the customs are the feast days, the Sabbath, the new moons, etc., taking straight from the Mosaic law, right? In this text, we find Paul denying that he taught these things in verse number 24. Actually, verse number 24 is James telling Paul what he must need to do. Verses 22 through 24 is James telling Paul what he must need to do in order to confirm that he was not teaching these things, that he was not teaching not to keep the law of Moses. He was not teaching not to circumcise your children, and he was not teaching not to keep the Hebrew customs. So now what you guys are going to see in this video and subsequent receipts and subsequent series, you're going to see these guys, take various routes. They're not unified in, their theology. Some of them will say, well, Paul didn't teach that, right? They'll say that off the bat. Paul didn't teach that. Paul didn't teach that. Few of them, but you do have a few that, try to go that route. And the reason why they do that is so that they can throw you off and, throw your argument off. If you're saying that they do and they're saying that they don't, then you really have no argument, unless you can go and prove that they do, just like I've done here and I will continue to do. Because what you will see in these sessions is that these guys actually say two things at the same time. Their theology is very dualistic. It is very duplicitous. Pretty much in simple street terms, we call it double talk. They're saying the same thing. I hate you, but I love you. It's light, but it's dark. Those sort of things, to direct questions. Did Paul teach these things or did he not teach these things? What you're going to see, what we saw last week was this panel of so-called Christian apologists and pastors and theologians. We saw them deny that Paul almost uniformly, with the exception of one, I believe. I don't know if I'm mixing this session up with another, but you will see these guys in here. They're going to tell you in the beginning, if you guys watched the previous session, they went through, 30 minutes, 40 minutes to tell us that Paul never taught these things, that these rumors here that we find in Acts chapter number 21 and verse number 21 were just false rumors. Now, I agree with them, but what they're stating and what they teach and what you guys will see is two different things, which is giving us evidence that they are trying to be deceptive, right? That's logical evidence that they're attempting to be deceptive. They know they believe that Paul teach these things, but they will just tell you, nah, Paul didn't teach that. So people can see, well, he don't have an argument because this guy said Paul doesn't teach that. Well, I don't believe that. They'll say, I don't believe that. I don't believe Paul taught that. Well, you'll actually see that they are lying. They're being deceptive. And I'm going to show you that, out of their own mouths. Like I said, they spent 30, 40 minutes, in the last session of the first session of this 4-hour conference telling us how Paul did not say these things, right? Now we're going to, spend some time listening at them prove that Paul did, which is a total contradiction of in the same session, within the same hour of them saying Paul never taught these things. These was rumors. They have no evidence. They go right into proving that Paul taught these things. It is absolutely crazy. Once again, I appreciate everyone that's, tuning in, everyone that will tune in. You want to go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell button so you can get updates. We're going to go right on ahead and pick up from where we left off last week. Is said this council, and just watch it. Now, can you guys hear that out there? If you can hear it, give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear that video or something so that I can know that, we are being broadcast. If not, I can go ahead and fix that for you guys. If you can go ahead and, hit us in the chat and let us know that you can see these things, that would be great. Okay. Okay, now I want to take it back here. Okay. Okay, yeah, this is very important. So this is very important. We're going to start here. I guess we'll start around 32. No sound. You guys can't hear me out there? Can you guys hear me? Those of you guys that are in the chat room, I seen a message saying that you guys couldn't hear me. Bro, can you hear me? Can you hear the video? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and continue to play. Let me know. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I apologize about that. I was trying to use the headphones so that I didn't have to be so loud. I find myself being louder when I don't use those headphones. But just to recap, you know, we're going to pick up from where we started off in our last session.
You want her to continue to play, or you want me to read? Let it play, because he's gonna get excited over this one little word. Okay, all right, go ahead, QT. Press that play button, sis.
James changes the subject to the Yahudim and their zeal for the law. He does that for a reason, but it's important that we take note of that. Verse number 21 is where we get the foundational traditional Christianity from. This is where I extracted my doctrines that Christianity espoused is anti-Christ, anti the Bible, and against the doctrine of the apostles themselves. Watch this. Acts chapter number 21. And they are informed. Check out that word informed. Rumors of thee, because we're going to see that again in Romans about the report. And they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all the Jews which are among the Goyim to forsake Moshe. In other translations like the NLT, it gives you more clarity, and it tells you the law of Moses, because that's what's being talked about. To forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. So what I did was extracted those three doctrines from here, all which are fundamental and foundational to Christianity.
Okay, Brother Brian, go ahead.
All right, in that text, it says, and they informed of thee that thou teachest all the Jews. Somebody has informed these Jews, but watch what he says, which are among the Gentiles. So these Jews among the Gentiles to forsake Moses. Somebody has told them that Paul was doing this. There's never no proof. But check this part out, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, which is that's a Jewish tradition. Never no proof. Gentiles. So these Jews among the Gentiles to forsake Moses. Somebody has told them that Paul was doing this. There's never no proof. But check.
Now, he states that somebody told them. He's denying that Paul taught these rumors. That's the position that he's taking right now, is that Paul has denied, he's denying that, denying the rumors. He's in agreement with me that these are rumors, these are lies at this particular juncture. So we're picking up where we left off last week, and you're going to see the shift in just a second, going from, Paul didn't teach these things to demonstrating their belief that Paul did teach these things. Total contradiction, within, a space of 20, 30 minutes. Absolute nonsense. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to take this back.
This part out, saying that they ought to forsake Moses. Somebody has told them that Paul was doing this. There's never no proof. But check this part out, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, which is that's a Jewish tradition, needed to walk after the customs. What is customs? Does anybody know what customs are?
Now, I want you guys to listen to this. What is customs? He knows what customs are. He knows exactly what the custom is, but he's going to try to water it down and make it abstract and twist it. This is what's called eisegesis. This is what's called manipulation. This is what's called handling the word of the Most High deceitfully, because he knows very well what customs mean. And now watch how they downplay the fact that customs was referring to the Sabbath, the feast days, the new moon, everything that was contained in the law. Now watch this. And in a matter of 10 seconds, I believe it is, he's going to go ahead and tell you that he knows what the customs are and that he's being duplicitous. Now, he's going to tell you, well, I'm going to let him tell you.
Customs is related to cultural, it can be related to your food, the way you worship, the way, the custom of way a person may speak. Yeah, cultural.
Now, does that word say because they have to keep the law? Or does it say customs?
It just say customs.
So it's not the law. They're not required to do this, but because they're Jews, they do this. It's a custom.
Now, did you guys catch that? It's not a custom. The custom is not the law. But the Jews were keeping it, who were keeping the law, were keeping it because it's a custom. It's a custom. I'm going to let you guys hear that again.
So it's not the law. They're not required to do this, keep the law. Or does it say customs?
It just say customs.
So it's not the law. They're not required to do this, but because they're Jews, they do this.
What?
It's a custom.
These guys are playing on the intelligence of ignorant Pauline Christians. This is all that they're doing. They're playing on the intelligence. And if I was a Pauline Christian, I would be appalled. I would be upset that these guys are, think that I'm that stupid and ignorant to listen to this stuff. The problem is that they don't listen. They're spellbound. They've been hoodwinked, and so they don't listen to what these guys say. All they do is just go along and cheer and all of that, like the blind lead, like a bunch of zombies. It is plainly obvious. The very fact that he knows, he admits that he knows, he tells you guys, oh, the customs is not the law, and then turn right around and say that the law, the Jewish people was keeping the law because they was among other Jews and it was their custom. Absolutely hilarious. Crazy.
Yeah, it's not a requirement. Unless he's making it a requirement, which sounds like he's doing.
It's not a requirement, so they know we're talking about the law. It's not a requirement, it's a custom. The custom is not the law, but the law is a custom. What in the world? Nonsense. Dualistic, duplicitous nonsense.
How about James? He's in Jerusalem, and there are Jews that have customs that they follow because they're around other Jews.
Right.
Somebody has told them that Paul is telling them to forsake Moses, which we know he never told that.
Right? Paul never told that. You listen at these guys, please. Paul never told that. This is timestamp 3735. Paul never told that. These are rumors that were unfounded, he said previously. That's what the position is right now. That's where they are right now. You're going to see them switch up some kind of terrible in a moment.
He never told them that.
How about we read the whole chapter?
Yeah, that's probably better because he basically going to only read these 3 verses.
Okay.
Now, we're not going to go through them reading the whole chapter. We're going to skim before because now they're trying to, it's just filibustering. They're still not dealing with the issues whatsoever, the issues that I brought up. The issue is why does Pauline Christianity conflict the orders, the verdict, of the Apostolic Council in AD 50 and AD 60, which took place in Acts chapter number 15, which was AD 50, and Acts chapter number 21, which was AD 60. Why does the two doctrines conflict? Why does Pauline Christianity? I want you guys to notice they're going to read the whole chapter instead of just answering a simple question. But I'm going to let you guys see and still totally disregard the context. But we're not going to go through her reading the whole chapter. We're going to get to the point.
I got it already pulled up. Day ago, verse came to Syria aside. I want to bind the man who's on
to share. Now you see that top right there? The Holy Spirit does not want Paul to go to Jerusalem.
Of the Lord Jesus, by weeping and breaking my heart. Let's keep going. Verse 14. So when he would not be persuaded, we ceased and saying, the will of the Lord be done. Verse 15. And after those days, we packed and went up to Jerusalem. Also, some of the disciples from Caesarea went with us and brought with them a certain Manson of Cyprus, an early disciple with whom we were to lodge. Verse 17. And when we had come to Jerusalem, the brethren received us gladly. On the following day, Paul went in with us to James, and all the elders were present. Verse 19. When he had greeted them, he told in detail those things which God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. And when they had heard it, they glorified the Lord. And they said to him, you see, brother, how many myriads of Jews there are who have.
Now, I'm going to stop you guys. I'm going to let it play. Go ahead.
Believe.
I'm going to rewind that. Just remember this memories. It says myriad, but she says memory. And I'm saying that for a reason, which we'll get to shortly.
Had greeted them, he told in detail those things which God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. And when they had heard it, they glorified the Lord. And they said to him, you see, brother, how many myriads of Jews there are. How many myriads of Jews?
Myriads. I have no idea what a myriads is. And the only reason why I'm bringing that up, because the sister is about to just make a total and utter fool of herself, complaining about folks that can't read. She's going to get very indignant and condescending and say, these folks can't read, they need to go to school, all of this other kind of stuff. You're going to watch her say this, and she can't even say myriads.
Who have believed, and they are all zealous for the law. Verse 21. But they have been informed about you, that you teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, nor to walk according to the customs. What then? The assembly must certainly meet. I'm at verse 22, y'all. What then? The assembly must certainly meet, for they will hear that you have come. Therefore, verse 23, therefore, do what we tell you. We have 4 men who have taken a vow. Take them and be purified with them, and pay their expenses, so that they may shave their heads, and that all may know that those things of which they were informed concerning you are nothing, but that you yourself also walk orderly and keep the law. But concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written and decided that they should observe no such thing. I'm going to say that again, Brother Brian.
See, there was never an instruction that the Gentiles had to keep this law.
No, of course not, because Acts chapter 15 backs that up. Hold on. I want to take that again for everyone, including him, because maybe he just decided, oh, it just fell off the
like I said before, a Jew never stopped being a Jew. It was their custom. They grew up. They were born that way. They did the circumcision. That is a custom. But it's not a requirement for the Gentiles to keep the law of Moses.
I'm going to take it again. Verse 25. But concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written and decided that they should observe no such thing, except that they should keep themselves from things offered to what? Idols, from blood, from things strangled, and sexual immorality. This was also quoted back in Acts chapter 15. So
now I want you guys to watch this. She's going to read this, and like she just did, knowing that she believed Paul taught things Paul's doctrine was against these things. But she said Paul didn't teach that, right? The brother said Paul didn't teach that, right? Then they boldly read the scripture, and I'm going to read it again. But it's concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written and decided that they should observe no such thing, except you're going to watch them squirm and not want to deal with that upset, except in just a moment, except that they should keep themselves from things that offered to idols, from blood, and from things strangled, and from sexual immorality. Now, what she's doing is giving you guys a bunch of information to make you think that she knows what she's talking about. Well, this goes back to Acts chapter number 15. And it actually does. So what this is telling you, since you know that this goes back to Acts chapter number 15, you have to go back to Acts 15 and actually get the order, because this order was given in Acts chapter 15. When you do that, it's going to put this statement that was taken out of a letter that was issued from the apostles in Acts chapter number 15, right? And she's going to go to it. But my point being is that these guys can say all of these things, which you're going to see, and then she's going to turn right around after they've said that Paul didn't teach these things and prove that Paul taught these things according to them, that they believe that Paul taught these things. Watch.
Brother Brian, I'm going to ask this question. What is he talking about?
It's the same rules that these are what they call the Noahide laws in the Old Testament. That's all it is.
Now, did you hear that nonsense? Are you guys actually listening to this? This brother, instead of flat out admitting that you can't eat things offered to idols, you can't eat things with blood in it, and so therefore by subsequent, anything strangled still contains the blood, and so you can't eat things strangled. These are all straight out of the Torah, but they don't want to tell you that. They don't want to admit that. They're dancing around actually admitting the truth, which shows you guys that they're purposely being deceptive, right? He's going to say, this brother, who you'll hear the most throughout of this, and he also made a fool of himself a few nights ago, again, actually in part 3. In part 3, you will hear this guy come on, and when I ask him in regards to this, he drops off the program and run and hide just like the rest of them, because they have no answers, and because they know they've stuck their foot in their mouths and they can't take it out. And so now we're here at Acts chapter number 21, verse number 25. James is giving Gentiles specific commandments, and it's not just James. Peter is present, and all the elders at Jerusalem are present. All the elders. They all sign off on a document that says Gentiles cannot eat things offered to idols. Gentiles cannot eat blood. They can't partake in things strangled, and they must abstain from sexual immorality. Now, these are not the only things, as I proved in the last session, but they will admit that James actually said these things. James actually gave orders. But here's the thing also. Paul actually signed off on these documents as well. Paul was included as far as one of the elders. Paul was there. And not only that, Paul took these letters, and he was the one, him and Barnabas and someone else, I think it was Mark, that they had to go and publish these letters to the areas that were populated by Gentiles. Right? So now we're going to follow the logic, like I said, and we're going to see. She's going to go all the way back to Acts 15 and make it seem like she has all of this knowledge, and what she does, she know that this is what this is saying, but what she's doing is showing that she's being deceptive and duplicitous and trying to avoid from admitting. And this guy is talking about the Noahide laws. Let's pull up the Noahide laws. Let's see if this Acts chapter number 21 and 21 is talking about the Noahide laws. Let's pull it up. Let's see what the Noahide laws are. All right. Okay. Now, because we test everything here. We test everything by the internal and the external evidence. Just talking all of this esoteric, duplicitous, Gnostic nonsense, it don't fly over here, you know? And so the Noahide laws, this is not what I wanted. I had a list. Let me see. Let me go back and click on the list. It might be a list in here, but my computer is moving extremely slow here. So let's go back to Google, and let's say the list of, first of all, you notice that there are 7 of them. That's the first thing that you're going to know, that you should take note of, is that there are 7 Noahide laws. We have 4 in the text in Acts chapter number 21, verse number verse number 21. Acts chapter number 21, verse number 21 contains, verse number 25 also contains 4 commandments. The Noahide laws contain 7. Are you guys seeing this? Do not profane God's oneness in any way. Did we see that in Acts chapter number 21? Right? Actually, Acts number 25. Do we see that? Look at it for yourself. Oh, I'm not. Do not profane God's oneness in one way. Do not curse your creator. Where's that at? Do not murder. That's not in there either. Do not eat a limb of a living animal. You could classify that under don't eat blood, I guess, if you will. Do not steal. Where's the stealing at? There's no stealing in that. Harness and channel the human libido. That's your sexual command. That's one. Establish court law and ensure justice in the world. Where's that at? So these guys make up anything. This dude actually said that it's the Noahide laws instead of saying that it came out of Torah. A few of these things, the prohibition against blood, did come from the Noahide laws given in Genesis chapter number 9, right? So, but these are not Noahide laws. The context is keepeth the law of Moses. We go back up here once again, Acts chapter number 21 verse 20, and they are all zealous for the Noahide law, right? No, it's not talking about the Noahide law. It's talking about the law of Moses. Here we go again, to forsake Moses. In the New Living Translation, it translates transliterates the meaning here as to forsake the law of Moses, because that's what it's talking about, right? The customs, law of Moses, right? When we get here and to what James told Paul to do to show that he wasn't teaching these things, we find the law of Moses, right? Not Noahide laws, not anything. Noah is nowhere mentioned in here, but the brother just want to throw something out because they have no answer. So we're going to get back here. Oh man, my screen popped out here. We're going to get back here to the lesson, but he said that these were Noahide commandments. These were not Noahide commandments. These was Torah commandments straight out of the book of Torah. That's what the context tells you. The context says nothing about Noah and Noahide laws, 7 of them, and none of that. None of that. It's just absolute nonsense. But now we see these guys saying that James and admitting that James taught these things, that James and Peter and all the elders gave specific orders to the Gentiles as to what they could and what they couldn't do. And then he told them to go to the synagogue and learn, which I think is verse number 21 or 22 in Acts chapter number 20. I'm sorry, my screen went out here. He told them to go into the synagogues and learn the rest of the Mosaic law. But these guys want to twist it, and this is what you're seeing, eisegesis in action. This is called eisegesis. They're going to twist this text up, which in non-technical language means proof texting, which means you just putting your own stuff and your own opinions into the text. Haven't been verified, your own opinions and assertions, into the text. And that's exactly what these people do. Now, how in the world are you going to get Noahide in this nonsense? And she's going to watch how she pick up the Noahide spirit and say, yeah, this was in Genesis. They spoke about it, as if that nullifies the fact that James gave these commandments. And y'all saying Paul did, but he didn't teach against these, right? Check it.
That's all they're quoting.
Okay, so you done got, look at that. Acts 15, verse 19. Acts 15, 20. Acts 15, 29. What's this man's name? Defender of the way. Why do you tell this lie?
Now, I'm the one telling lies. All I'm doing is saying that James gave these commandments. Pauline, Christian apologists and theologians and pastors teach against these commandments, say Paul taught against these commandments, and I'm lying. But I'm going to show you guys out of their own mouths who the liars are. Now, they're getting ready. I've shown you guys this in the last session, last 3 sessions. But I'm going to show you specifically how deceptive these people are. Why are you lying? What lie have I told? Pauline Christianity conflicts what we see here. Observe to accept that they should keep things, keep themselves from things offered to idols. In a second, she get ready to tell you that she believes that she can eat things offered to idols and blood and things strangled. It doesn't matter unless all you got to do is pray over it, which contradicts this commandment from James here, James, Peter, Paul himself, and all the elders here, right? Acts 21 and 25, right? Right? Conflicts it. But they're going to fix that conflict by just lying and telling you Paul didn't say it, and then going right after that and proving that they believe Paul did teach these things.
Huh? Why are you cherry picking the scriptures like that? No, yeah, we read in context. Number one, Cherry just did was disregard the context, which is circumcision. No, I didn't.
Now, I just told her the context of this statement, not this chapter, but this statement, which was taken from Acts chapter 15, like she said. So in order to put this statement back in context, you got to go to Acts chapter number 15. And so what they did, which I sped through and sped up, was read the chapter and still disregard the fact that the reason that the council convened was because of circumcision. I'm going to prove it to you. Like I did in the last video, we'll go to Acts chapter number 15. Acts chapter number 15. Oh, wow. And we're going to get the context. Acts chapter number 15, for those of you guys that's out there, I'm going to put it on the screen, but you can go ahead and pull it up in your Bibles. Acts chapter number 15, and we're going to begin at verse number 1, just so we can find out why this council convened, why this statement that is contained in Acts 21, which the sister correctly stated, that comes from Acts chapter number 15. And even though they read it, what they did was totally disregarded. I'm going to restate it. I said it in the last video. And certain men which came down from Judea taught the brethren and said, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, ye cannot be saved. I don't see anything in the law, anything say keep the law. It says stop trying to force Gentiles. Well, it doesn't say that. It just says that certain men came down from Jerusalem, from Judea, taught the brethren and said, this is the Gentile brethren, except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses, ye cannot be saved. When therefore, to find out for sure, when therefore Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and disputation with them, they determined that Paul and Barnabas and certain of them should go up to Jerusalem and elders about what? About the law? What does it say? About this question, right? For those of you guys that are, mildly educated, You know, when it say this question, you have to go back to the previous verse in which to find out which question that they were asking. So the same thing that I did with Acts chapter number 21. Didn't actually answer a question, but I extracted questions from the text, directly out of the text. This is what verse 2 did. Except ye be circumcised after the manner of Moses. So the question is, do Gentiles have to be circumcised in order to be saved? That's the question. That's the question. Do Gentiles have to be circumcised in order to be saved? We know that for sure because we get it from verse number 2. And so now what they did was totally disregard this context. What they did was put the law, interject the law into the text, put the law into the text, and then, chop the remaining part of the text up, right? So now that we know that the context, which is the reason why this council convened, was because there were certain men which came down from Judea and told the brethren that the Gentile brethren, that they had to be circumcised, right? Right? Nothing about the law in those texts. That gives us the context that tells us why this council convened, right? Now, let me make it simple for you. If you go to court and you got charges for driving on a suspended license or a speeding ticket, they can't get you in court and then charge you on another charge on murder. They're going to have to try you separately from that case. They're not going to be able to bring up any murders on a parking ticket, on a driving violation. If you have murders or whatever, that's going to be separated. The judge is not going to hear anything about murders or anything else. And so it's the same principle here. These guys convened for one thing. Do the Gentiles have to be circumcised in order to be saved? They're not talking about the law. We know that for a logical fact because the sentence of the judge, which in this case is James, gave them Torah, commandments that was directly out of Torah. No idols, no fornication, no blood, directly out of Torah. Not Noahide. They wasn't thinking about Noahide. They was thinking about the law of Moses. Once again, we know that for sure because he say for Moses. You see that? Or this say Noah? Does this say Noah? Maybe I don't have my glasses on, so that might say Noah. No, it says, for Moses of old time have in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath. And for those of you guys that are Bible students, I'm not going to go into it because I want to get into there and continue to let them hang themselves. But you'll see that the Gentiles was learning from the Jews in the temple on the Sabbath day, all throughout the book of Acts. So what they want you to believe is that from Acts chapter number 15, verses 1 through 19 is a condemnation of the law of Moses. And then in 1 through 18 is a condemnation of the law of Moses. And then verse 19, he gives them Noahide commandments or non-Mosaic commandments, and then once again talks about the Mosaic law here. That's non sequitur. If we're talking about the Mosaic law up here, it's going to and it's going to continue through all the way through to verse number 21. We know that because it says Moses here, right? We know that. We know that for a fact. You know, so these guys are making no sense whatsoever. You're seeing the duplicitous nature, the deceit, the mishandling of the word of the Most High deceitfully. Now, we're going to continue to get back to our video here. I just wanted to make that point that this dude actually had the nerve to say that these were Noahide laws. My goodness gracious.
I read that entire passage.
We just read the whole chapter. What is he talking about?
Do these people got a counting problem?
I think they got a reading problem.
Counting and reading problem. This is not good for you, bro. I read from verse.
Now, do you guys remember that? These people have an accounting and a reading problem. The same person that just couldn't say myriad, right? You see how hypocritical these folk are? You trying to be condescending and say you went to school and all of this. You didn't take the topic sentence of the chapter. You in the conclusion, you did not include that anywhere in there. In fact, you're going to say, where does it say circumcision in there at? You're going to hear her speak this nonsense, which absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm going to continue on. I just wanted to make a note of that, how hypocritical these people are. They're going to try to be condescending. And if we go back, which I'm not going to do for the interest of time, you guys can go ahead and rewind it. When she was reading through the chapter that I fast forwarded through, she said, my reeds, which is not a word. And the word is myriad. So if you've been to school, you've been to college, you've been to all these places, why is it that you can't say myriad? You know, and why is it that you being condescending and trying to say some, you know, that's what I talk about. What is that called? Projection, right? That's called projection, when you pass off what you are actually doing onto somebody else to keep the attention off of you. He's lying. He's twisting up the scripture. He can't read. All these accusations that they themselves are doing. And I am not, as you guys can see. I'm the only logical one here that's making any kind of logical sense whatsoever.
1 to 25 concerning this matter. And look at what is cross-referencing. I'm going to read the cross-reference in case, you know, you just so happen didn't see it. Okay, so Acts chapter 21, verse 25, cross-reference Acts 15:19, which says this: therefore, I judge that we should not trouble those from among the Gentiles who are turning to God. Acts 15:20 says,
hey, Sister, put the post the number in there. Let him call in.
Okay, I thought I did. Okay, no problem.
Because he's wanting to talk.
Okay, no problem. Okay, 1. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, there's the number. You got to dial the 1 first, please, in order to, for the call to go through. So Acts chapter, what's that? 15, did 15 through, what was that? 19, and Acts 15:20 says, but that we write to them to abstain from things polluted by idols, sexual immorality, and from blood. Acts 15:29, that you abstain from things offered to idols, from blood, and things that were strangled, and etc. So, what's the problem here?
She asks what the problem is here. Let me tell you guys, the text that you are speaking out of conflicts with your doctrine, conflicts with the teachings that you teach, that you've been taught, and you know these things. That's the problem. You know that James taught these things. You know that you believe that Paul taught something different, but you're acting like there's no problem. You see what I mean? It's like, y'all, get into that next. I'd like to give a shout out. It's time to give a everyone that tune in and listen. Give a shout out to Sister Sheik, Shalom in the building, in search of Yah, Shalom. Guys, if you guys could go ahead, video, so that we can get the word out and expose these folks. But in the next series, we have a series called Strong Delusion, Ministry or Magic, Minister or Magician, right? And I'm going to be showing you guys that these folks are actually using black magic. They're actually using and employing witchcraft. And I'm going to show you that from a biblical standpoint with the internal evidence, and from a external standpoint, external evidence, which is the historical standpoint and the modern day fruit of these folks, because we're talking about inspecting the fruit. So we're letting them show us their fruit, and we're taking it and inspecting it by the scriptures.
The Gentiles are being told what to stay away from. They were never told to keep the Mosaic law. They were never told to be circumcised. Unless I'm crazy. I put the number in there for you. So you free to call in, Defender of the Way, whatever your name is. Yeah, you got some issues here because Acts chapter 21 is not saying what you said in this video. And
Acts chapter number 21 is not saying what I said in the video. And you guys is posted on the 1 hour 46 minutes or whatever it is on there where I stated exactly what this says. I said Paul denied in Acts chapter number 21. Paul denied teaching the doctrines in Acts chapter number 21, which later became Christianity. Paul denied teaching that. That's what I stated in the video. That's what I affirmed. That's what my argument is. My argument number 2 is that James gave specific commandments. James, Peter, and all the elders at Jerusalem gave specific commandments to the Gentiles that Pauline Christian doctrine conflicts with. That's what I said, and that's what I've proven. So now she's going to speak this out. She's going to speak this out of her mouth to put this out in the air and tell this lie that this scripture is not saying what I said it says. Absolutely crazy.
And Acts chapter 15 is not saying what you're saying. The Gentiles were never required to keep the laws of Moses. So you got some issues there.
Even in the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy, what is it? Deuteronomy, I forget what chapter it is, but it actually says, I think it's 14. It actually says that they can actually give a unclean animal to the Gentiles. So I don't know why he's so dogmatic about trying to keep. I mean, make Gentiles keep laws that they never had to keep.
Okay, well, here you go. I think this is him. Hey, this is Sister Cherry Love. Peace and blessings to you. Thank you for calling in. What's your comment or your question?
Okay, first and foremost, as I stated in the video and in this comment, your consensus, your conclusion is faulty because it is not based on the context. The context of the chapter in Acts 15 is spelled out in verse number 1. That's the reason that the council convened. That's the reason why they were all there. And that's the reason for your letter in verse number 24 in Acts, I think 25 in Acts chapter number 15, and the corresponding verse to that in the 21st chapter. So now if you go to Acts 15 and you start at verse number 1, like you do in school, when you go to the beginning paragraph of an essay or a discourse or what have you, that is generally the topic sentence. That's going to give you the context of that essay. According to elementary school, what I learned in elementary school, later for Bible college and all these advanced degrees, don't be Acts chapter 15, number 1, states that the council convened for circumcision. Number 1. Number 2, we know that he wasn't telling them in your, but concerning the Gentiles who believe, he has written and decided that they should observe no such thing. So now what you guys are attempting to do and have incorrectly done is identify no such thing. Not no such thing, plural, referring to the Mosaic law and all of its accoutrements. This says no such thing. And we know this for a fact because if you go back up to verse number 20, James actually gives Torah commandments. Actually gives them Torah commandments and non-exhaustiveness of Torah commandments. So you know that it is logically flawed. It is a logically flawed fallacy for you guys to say that this text here in, what is this, the 25th verse, when it's saying concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written and decided that they should observe no such thing. One thing, that they should keep themselves from things of the idols. Go back again and give them the law.
In verse 24, it plainly says, but that but that you yourself also walk orderly and keep the law, but concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written and decided that they should observe no such thing. What is he talking about? Keep the law, walk orderly and keep the law. How hard is that? It's not that hard.
Okay, now here's the fundamental issue, and here's the reading comprehension issue that they're having. I don't understand it, why they're having this issue. Well, I do understand it. For some of them, most of these apologists especially, they're just being deceptive. They're purposely ignoring the context. As I stated, I've told her several times. I started off my discourse once they allowed me on the program by telling her and taking her to verse number 1, which gives us the context. See, if you remember, you guys remember when we started this video, this same brother that's ignoring the context, Brother Brian Garcia, that's ignoring the context, is the one that says in his introduction, you know, hey, I'm Brother Garcia, and as I say, context, context, context. If you don't take into account the context, you will be made to look like a fool. That's what he said in the beginning of his introduction. But yet here he's totally disregarding the fact that the reason why the council convened, the audience, see, these people have problem understanding the argument or accepting the argument. They've been being duplicitous so long. They've been avoiding the issue so long. They've been diverting and causing diversion so long that they can't understand direct issues. Now, the issue of this council in Acts chapter 15 that took place in 50 AD is circumcision. I've proven that. I took them through that. That's proven by Acts chapter number 15, verse number 1, and verse number 2 that tell you that the apostles and elders convened about this question. We see no law in here, no law of Moses in this first verse. We see nothing but circumcision. So therefore, by logical process of reason, when James gives his sentence, he's given his sentence to circumcision. See what I mean? He's given his sentence to circumcision and not to the laws of Moses. We know that for a fact, once again, because he gives them the law of Moses here in verse 20. And then in verse 21, he says, go to the synagogue, continue to go to the synagogue. He said, because Moses of old time having them in every city, them that preach him being read in the synagogue every Sabbath. So we're going to give you these 3 or 4 things here, and then continue to go to the synagogues on the Sabbath to learn the rest of the Mosaic law, right? So it's impossible for James to be saying when it says in verse number 21, in chapter number 21 and verse number 25, that they observe no such thing. This observe no such thing goes right back to Acts. What such things are they talking about? Why did they convene? What is the issue? Circumcision, right? Right? Besides the fact that Paul gave, I'm not going to get into that because she's going to lead me there in 1 Corinthians 7 and 19. So she's going to lead me there. So I'm going to let her lead me so you guys can get the rest of these receipts here out of their mouth. Leader for Christ, I see you in the room. Appreciate you. Shotgun 25, I see you in the room. Appreciate you, bro.
The whole context of the text, like I said, the reason that the council convened is for circumcision. It wasn't for the law in general. We know that for a logical fact.
What does that say, Michael?
Do you guys see that? The interruption. He's not dealing with this context that he said, that he stated. Please play this when I post this on air. You guys can go back to part 3. Go back to the beginning when they're giving an introduction to this guy. They call him Brother Brian, Brother B, Brother Bryant, or whatever that they calling him. He says context, 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 right? and then totally ignores the fact that this council convened for circumcision, and so therefore it's logically likely that the sentence given at the council was about circumcision. But he's totally skipping that. And watch them continue to make this circumcision argument a red herring argument to avoid answering my direct question.
Okay, and verse 24, hold on, let me read this. In verse 24, it says, take them and be purified with them and pay their expenses so that they may shave their heads and that they all may know that those things of which they have informed concerning you are nothing, but that you yourselves also walk orderly and keep the law. But concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written and decided that they should observe no such thing, except that they should keep themselves from things offered to idols, from blood, and things strangled, and from sexual immorality. That's what was given to the Gentiles.
And that's what we call a contrast. He says, but that you yourself also walk orderly and keep the law. But that's the contrast, opposite of what he just said. Concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written and decided they should observe no such thing.
Okay, now can I comment to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Okay, now let's check this out. The logic, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and put the nail in the coffin for you guys. But as concerning the Gentiles, the Gordian which believe, we have written that they decided that they do not observe the law. As far as you guys about it. Except the law that says offering up idols, the blood, all these things that are in the law. So you know what that's called? That's called non-sequitur logic.
Non sequitur logic. For you guys that don't know what non sequitur means, I know that's a technical word. Let's pull that up and because I want you guys to see that I know what I'm talking about and that what I'm saying is true. It says a conclusion or a statement that does not logically follow. Oh, my screen went out here again. Oh my goodness gracious. Bear with me 1 second. A conclusion or statement that does not logically follow from the previous argument or statement, right? His weird mixed metaphors and non sequiturs. Let's see if we can. Well, I'm not going to get an example. I'm not going to waste the time. You guys can go in and get the other examples. I'm giving you a live example here now. So now what they're saying, let me show you what the non sequitur logic is there. Now he says they want you to believe that in this text, he's talking about the law, right? So what I did was went with their logic to show them how illogical it was. We tested that theory. Now, we know we're talking about the law here, right? As touching the Gentiles which believe, we have written and concluded that they do not observe the law, right? Because that's what they're saying, that they observe no such thing means the law. Only the law that keep themselves from things offered to idols and from blood and from strangled and from fornication, right? Now, if we go with their logic, we got to go back into the original text in order to get the whole context, because that's where they're taking it from. And that's Acts chapter number 15. So when we go to Acts chapter number 15, verse number 21, we find out why he just said these four things, right? It says, for Moses of old time hath in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath, right? To me, that seems to say, and to all logical thinkers, I'm going to give you these 4 law commandments, and then you go learn the rest of the Mosaic law in the Sabbath day, in the synagogue on the Sabbath day, just like you've been doing, just like we read about all of the Gentiles doing in the book of Acts, right? Right? So now he the logic that they're giving us again is that Acts 15 verses 1 through 18 is talking about the Gentiles not keeping the law. Then in verse 15, in verse 20, he gives them commandments straight out of the law. And then he tells them, or to know how commandments, as Brian Gersey stated that these are the Noahide laws, a bunch of nonsense. And then he goes back to Moses. You see how that does not follow? Because if he's telling them not to keep the law all through 1 through 18, that the law is done away with, it's abolished, then he cherry picks only 4 commandments out of the law to give to them. Now, once again, as I stated, the problem with that is that there's no love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. There's no don't commit murder. There's none of that there. Don't bear false witness. That's not there. Love you. The 2 main things are not there. According to the Pauline Christian apologists and theologians, the only 2 laws that they have to abide by is love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, and your neighbor as yourself. Those 2 commandments, right? So where are they? Right? It's missing. So there's not an exhaustive list. And therefore, because it's not an exhaustive list, in 21, he said, learn the rest of the commandments, because Moses is teaching in the synagogue, being taught in the synagogue. When he say Moses, he mean the Mosaic law. For the Mosaic law, since we can remember, has been being preached in every city in the synagogues on the Sabbath day. That's what that scripture says. So that's what is meant by non sequitur. These guys' theology makes no sense. It does not line up with the text. Acts chapter 15, verse 1 says the issue was circumcision. They're posing the law in the sentence, which makes no sense, especially when you go to 1 Corinthians 7 and 19, Romans chapter number 2, I think is verse number 14, Romans chapter number 3, verse number 31. When you get to those, all of those contradict the position that Paul did, the Gentiles were not given Torah. All of those contradict. Corinthians, that was written to Gentiles. Paul is in Corinthians teaching Gentiles to keep Torah. In the book of Romans, Paul is talking about Torah keeping Gentiles in the book of Romans. For they that the Gentiles that do by nature the things that are in the law are a law unto themselves. So the Gentiles that are keeping the law is confirming a law that you guys say you keep but don't really keep. That's what he was saying in Romans. So that goes against and kills. It's not just a one-hit wonder. I'm not just one scripture wonder. All scripture must be all doctrine must be backed up by 2 or 3 witnesses, according to the scriptures. So you can't just cherry pick and all of that stuff, because you end up like these folks, pushing stuff into the text, which is called eisegesis. And you're going to hear her scream, I didn't eisegete. Just because you say you don't eisegete doesn't mean that you don't. Absolutely ludicrous. You know, just because you don't, you're saying they're putting Pauline Christianity, Pauline Christian theology and doctrine into this text. That's what they're doing. And they're saying I'm twisting the text. You know, it's crazy. So we're gonna pick this up. I'm getting ready to close this out in a moment. I wanted to get finish my list here, and then we'll pick it up. I don't even know if we'll continue on with this. I'm really feel like these guys are wasting my time, but something in my spirit keeps edging me to go ahead and expose this nonsense and show our people, the follower. When I say our people, I mean followers of the way everywhere. You know, how to deal with Pauline Christian apologetics and theology. As you guys can see, they cannot deal with these questions. If you guys give them these questions, they're going to run. They're going to expose themselves for being a duplicitous, deceitful, lying folk that they are, disorderly, unruly folk that they are. Now, we're going to see that here with Brother Context. Let's watch him totally disregard the context of Acts chapter number 15, which is circumcision. And the context certainly has a bearing, and the issue certainly has a bearing on the verdict given in Acts chapter number 15, verse 19.
Because if you're stating that in the beginning part that they should have observed no such thing, is the law in general itself whole, complete, everything, nothing left out, then you have a problem with and a contradiction with them saying except that they should keep themselves from and from sexual immorality. Like I said, no.
What does accept mean? Accept.
Except.
If you give me 1 minute, I'll finish. Give you 60 seconds.
Okay.
We decided we got to do an English lesson here.
Okay, because
So now we need to do an English lesson. Do you see this? These guys are, whew, that's called projection. The one that needs the English lesson are these folks that are denying the context of this passage and twisting the scriptures.
I literally, hold on. I literally want to respond to you. Okay, and I'm glad you went to elementary school, and I also went to elementary school, high school, and college. And I was also taught intro, story and context, as well as conclusion. Here's the thing. The main thing that is the main importance is the conclusion. What brought the conclusion and what is the final result, which is the conclusion, right? And right here.
Now watch her. She wants to sound deep. Whatever she said didn't make any logical sense. You got to start off with whatever she was saying. I didn't hear any body of evidence in there. She jumped straight to the conclusion and make herself seem like she knows what she's talking about, but she still can't say myriad is my read. But anyway, so she wants us to believe that she's this English expert and master, and that, you know, my proper exegesis lacks English, proper English or what have you. So listen at this nonsense.
What I see here at verse 25 regarding this issue, the conclusion is that the Gentiles have to not observe no such thing. They didn't put that on them. Again, we see that in Acts chapter 15. In the
Notice how she totally left out, except that they should keep. You're going to see them keep doing that. Leave out, except that they should keep themselves from things. They cherry picking the verses to make them fit what to try to force them to fit their theology.
Start of it, the intro of it, Pharisees telling them, listen, you must be circumcised in order to be saved. You must do the laws of Moses in order to be saved. In the middle of the story, Paul and Barnabas, Silas, and all of them, Peter, is coming to them saying, no, why are you putting a yoke around the disciples' neck? Jesus didn't teach that. Hold on, let's keep going down. Then it gets down there. Why should we put this on the Gentiles, something that we couldn't keep? We know they can't keep it, and we couldn't keep it. So why would we put that burden on them? Then they come to this conclusion, again, that the Gentiles don't have to do this. And the same list that was given over in Acts 15 is given over here in Acts 21. So either you're having a problem with intro, story, context, then conclusion, you're skipping out on all of that, and you're trying to change the conclusion. That's what you're doing.
Now, as you guys are going to see, the conclusion is, except that they should keep themselves from things offered to idols, from blood. I try to take her back to that, but the brother said context. He ignored that. She said conclusion, and she's going to ignore the conclusion.
Well, let's test the conclusion. Let's test your conclusion.
No, that's nothing. This is not my conclusion. This is the Bible's conclusion regarding the Gentiles. God gave this.
Let's see if that's the Bible's conclusion. That's all I'm saying. Check this out right here. Now, what you're saying, right, is these commandments is the only commandments that Gentiles will give.
That's what the scripture said. I didn't say that. That's what they said.
Now you see that these are the only commandments that and she don't realize that she's admitting that she's supposed to be keeping these commandments, although she's not, although she teach against these commandments. Absolutely nonsense, right? So
wait. You got to say that, and this is what So Real said in the video that I made. Okay, so thank you, sir, for admitting that. He said these are the only. So you agree that James gave these 4 things to the Gentile believers.
What's written right there in verse 25? But concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written and decided, meaning that they came to a conclusion. They came to an agreement. They came to a result. They came to the final and said that they should not observe no such thing except these things.
talking to the apostles.
Ask Paul and Peter and Barnabas in them.
Now she's trying to avoid the question. She's trying to avoid the issue. I'm leading her to the noose. She's then walked up on the platform. They've already pretty much hung themselves. They put the noose around their own selves. So now she's trying to get out. She's realized she's been messed up. Now she's trying to avoid answering direct questions. I asked her what commandment, because I wanted to hear her say it directly out of her mouth, that James gave these commandments that they don't follow.
It's right here. We don't have to. It says, except that they should keep themselves from things offered to idols. In other words, you can't eat things offered to idols.
Okay.
I'm going to take this straight from the text. Number 2, you can't eat things that contain blood.
Cool.
Number 2, right? You can't have things that strangle.
Cool.
Right? And I'm about to be still on the same thing.
Cool.
Right? So James gave these Gentiles.
And they can't do sexual immorality. Cool.
Let me finish. Give me about 2 minutes. I'll wrap it up because I am very interested to see how you guys try to get out of this. But anyway, so we agree that James gave these commandments written right here in the book of Acts, chapter number 15, verse number 25. Now, we don't agree that he said you don't have to keep all the rest of the law, but I'm going to go with you guys, Rob.
They said observe no such thing, that they don't have to. This is your argument.
Now here come the interruptions. Now she knows she's been messed up. All of the interruptions are going to increase from this point. They will not allow me to get to the point of, why do you say Paul told y'all different than what Paul agreed to at this council that he signed off on? All the elders, Peter and James, signed off on. That's the issue.
Argument is not with us. Your argument is with the scripture, sir. That is what is written. Is that not written right there? That they should observe no such thing. Let me highlight it in a different color so everybody can see it right here, because you're bypassing for some crazy reason. You're acting like that don't exist.
But you're talking about the conclusion, and the conclusion is except that they should keep themselves. Remember?
So now I have to bring her back to the conclusion, right? So she said, what are you talking about? I'm taking you back to the conclusion is what I'm talking about. Deal with this issue, which she will not. Watch the distractions and talk secondary arguments and the ad homs and the yelling and screaming. Watch.
Don't exist.
But you're talking about the conclusion, and the conclusion is except that they should keep themselves. Remember?
So where's the circumcision, sir? Where's the rest of the laws of Moses in here?
See the ignorance and the nonsense. Where's the circumcision? Where's the circumcision? Circumcision. The circumcision is that they should observe no such thing. Where's the laws of Moses at in here? Don't eat things sacrificed to idols. Don't partake in idol worship. Don't eat things with blood in it. And because you can't eat things with blood in it, you can't eat things strangled, because things strangled contains the blood in it, because you didn't drain the blood out of it. And from sexual immorality, all these things in the law. So where's the law spoken at in this? Nonsense. So she has no argument at this point. So now she's making up any and every thing to avoid answering the question as to why her religion teaches against these things. Why her religion teach that you can do these things that the apostles said that you couldn't. And this is specifically talking about Gentiles.
Okay, yeah, you can finish, but I want to ask you, in this list that, hold on, in this list that was given to the Gentiles, about the Gentiles, where's the laws of Moses? Did you find that?
Right here, except they should keep themselves from things offered to idols, that's in the law of Moses. From blood, in the law of Moses. From things strangled, in the law of Moses. From fornication or sexual immorality, in the law of Moses. Number one.
That's moral law, sir. That's moral.
It doesn't say moral law.
That's moral law. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make any graven images and bow down to them. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Okay, so that's moral. That's moral.
The Bible does not talk about moral law. None of these apologists can go find me moral law in the scripture. It comes from their pagan philosophy, Greco-Roman philosophy, aka what they call, also known as theology. That's where that comes from. There's no distinction. Do you see, if we go back to the text here, you don't see any distinctions being made. You know why? Because everybody present, all the law-abiding Jews that are present, understand what is meant by the law. Right? By the law. They understand that. But for some reason, it escapes them that you walk as orderly and keepeth the law, right? All of this, right? So she don't get that they're talking about the law of Moses, right? She's acting like she don't get that. Now she realized she done messed up. She can't answer this question. It's going to make her look bad and confirm my position that Pauline Christianity, with its Pauline Christian apologists, theologians, and pastors, is contrary to the scriptures. It conflicts the Bible, which they say they follow. It's just that simple. So what they have to do is twist the Bible. They have to ignore what certain texts say in order to promulgate their theology, their philosophy, right?
And not to mention the blood situation that was given to Noah back in Genesis chapter 9, verse 3. It was said before the...
So now she has no defense. So now she goes and try to ride off of the brother and talk about these Noahide commandments that I've just showed you guys. It cannot be the Noahide commandments.
Moses came in. God told Noah that. That's what he told him.
Red herring argument.
Because he said the blood is the life. How about you go and read it? Huh? But no.
See the distractions? See, I keep trying to bring her back to what the issue is. We're not talking about that. She's causing interruptions, making nonsensical statements. Where's circumcision? No such thing. It told you in Acts 15:1. Well, where's the laws of Moses? The ones that you refuse to read, except that they keep them things from things offered to idols, blood, strangle, and sexual immorality. That's the law of Moses. What?
I'm showing you where this came from. I'm showing you where it came from, sir. So
where it came from is a secondary argument. What we're talking about is whether James gave these commandments, which we know he did, whether Paul was in agreement with these commandments, which we know he was because he took the letter and agreed to spread it, and whether the doctrine that Pauline Christianity teach contradicts this, which we know it does. That's what the issue is, which she's trying to avoid.
What I just got through quoting is God giving those commandments. But Moses didn't give none of that. No, he may expound it, but God said that a long time ago. So what you talking about?
I'm talking about accepting things themselves from things offered to idols, blood, things strangled. And my point being,
and sexual immorality. You keep leaving that out for some reason. Okay.
I know I did. I said it the first time. I said one of these sexual immorality.
Oh, okay. My bad. All right, no problem. Okay, so where's circumcision in here?
Can I finish?
Okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
The Bible says here's the conclusion of the matter. That's what the scripture says. And you brought up the conclusion. So can I get to the conclusion?
Oh, okay.
Now, I just told her what the Bible says, that you should hear the conclusion of the matter before you go shooting off at your mouth and making judgments and conclusions. And she's going to show you guys that that these guys do not, they disregard all scriptures. And hopefully we can get to it. I want to get to this Remy sister who flat out just tells you that these folks believe they don't have to listen to nothing, nobody, and not even Jesus, not the apostles, none of them. They don't have to do none of that. They don't have no commandments. She's going to tell you that in here in just a moment.
Praise God. Come on.
And then we'll end it there.
Oh, okay. Praise God. Come on.
And we be visible here.
Come on.
So accept that they should keep themselves from things offered to idols, which is in the law, from blood, which is in the law, from things strangled, which is in the law,
eisegeting. I'm not eisegeting at all. No, because you're putting something on me that I didn't say. You're putting something on us that we didn't. We don't do eisegesis.
So now this whole eisegesis argument, you see, this is just another excuse to cause interruptions to get me from showing that their theology is inconsistent with the Bible itself. So now is, oh, I'm not doing exegesis. So just because you say it, it makes it not so. Just because you say you're not doing it, that means that you're not actually doing it, in which she is. She's pushing her own opinions into pushing Pauline Christianity into this text, in which this text actually condemns Christianity. So what you have to do is force your own determined and preconditioned theology into this text, and that's exactly what she's doing. That's exactly what they're doing. But she's going to make this whole red herring argument, and you notice how the distractions just keep coming.
Okay, cool. Okay, all right. So now, what you did is, well, what I'm saying is your interpretation is that way. Your interpretation of what Paul wrote to you, i.e., whatever is sold in the shambles, I can eat. That's not what this text says here, according to James. So according to James himself, right? So we just agreed, and it's on this live on this video, that James gave these commandments to Gentiles, and in fact, he gave a letter and put it in Paul's hands. Now, can you guys explain to me how Paul took this letter out of James' hands and then went to blood? It don't matter. Some people that are weak in the faith, they don't want to eat things over idols.
I don't eat nothing off of.
I asked her a direct question. Now watch how she avoid the question by, just spitting ignorance. I mean, listen at her answer. The question is, why, if and the rest of the apostles gave all these letters that Paul's supposed to be taking around, all these Gentile folk, why do Paul got letters in his hand that contradicts the so-called ministry or doctrine that Paul was teaching, right? So he's giving letters out that's in total contradiction with his gospel, right? I asked her this question, and this is the best that this Christian apologist can give to that, besides distractions and all the red herring arguments, nonsense about where's the law in verse 25, all of that stupidity. So now let's listen at her response.
It don't matter. Some people that are weak in the faith, they don't want to eat things offered to idols.
I don't eat nothing offered to idols. I buy my stuff out the grocery store. I don't get that. I don't get that. I'll tell you this. Hold on. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you what else Paul said. I'll tell you.
You see that? Now she's about to show you that she's a true Paulinian. I asked her a specific question. Why is it that James, Peter, all the elders, and Paul in agreement agreed to these things that you are saying that Paul is not teaching? That you said Paul is teaching, that Paul taught, right? That Paul taught that you can eat things offered to idols. It doesn't matter. Only the weak people, the weak Christians, worry about whether things been offered to idols or not. The rest of the folks don't have to worry about it. The strong Christians, the Pauline Christians, they don't have to worry about whether things are offered to idols or not. That conflicts with James, except that they should keep them things offered to idols. How are you going to keep yourself from things offered to idols if you don't ask? Right? You're going to hear her contradict this in just a moment. I got to get to it. I know this is kind of long. Maybe later on we can chop these things up. But I want to go ahead and get this last point out and get to this, Sister Remy. I'm going whatever her name is, I think it's Remy. I'm going to get to that part, and I'm going to end with her giving us a flat out statement of the fruits of pagan Paulinity. Now, we're going to listen to this pagan Paulinian here. This is why I call them pagan Paulinians, and this is why I call Christianity Paulinity, because when in doubt, when you can't defend yourself, go back and twist Paul. right? That's the only thing they can do is twist Paul. Now watch her. You're going to watch her say, Paul said, Paul said, but Paul said. But what about with James? Apostle James, the brother of Jesus, the Apostle Peter, who was given the keys, and who was the first person to minister to the Gentiles, and all the elders of Jerusalem, what about what they said? This is why I call them Paulinians, because the only defense that they have is to twist the writings of Paul. So now she realizes that she has no answer. She done stuck her foot in her mouth. So now she calls all kinds of distractions and stupid arguments. I go to the supermarket. What does supermarket have to do with you eating things offered for idols? Actually, this is telling you that you shouldn't go to supermarkets unless you know where your food come from. Right? You could, if you don't know where it come from, you should not be eating it because it could be offered to idols. Right? It could be strangled and not properly killed. Right? But she's saying, I get my food from the supermarket, as if that changes anything, or as that is an answer to the question of why does Pauline Christianity conflict this verse. Right? She can't answer.
What Paul said. I'm going to tell you something what Paul said real quick. Hold on. I'll tell you this. Hold on. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you what else Paul said. I'll tell you what Paul said. I'm gonna tell you something what Paul said real quick. I don't get that. I'll tell you this. Hold on. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you what else Paul said. I'll tell you what Paul said. I'm gonna tell you something what Paul said real quick. Hold on. Real quick.
Now watch this. Watch this. Now what she's gonna tell me that Paul said, right? She's going to tell me that Paul said that you can eat things sacrificed to idols, things strangled, and things with blood in it. That's what she's about to tell you, what she done spent. We had an hour and 4 minutes in this video now. So she done spent the hour and 4 minutes telling you that Paul didn't teach this. Now she's about to show you. She just said, I'm going to show you what Paul said. I'm going to show you what Paul said. I'm going to show you what Paul said, right? That's why I call them Paulinians. Now watch she contradict herself and her whole panel and all the rest of the lying deceivers and show us what she really means. So she just told a lie. Paul never taught that. Paul, these were rumors. Remember that? A whole hour worth of that nonsense. And now the true color is about to come out.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you something. We're gonna tell you something that Paul said. Actually, I don't want to leave this. Okay.
James gave these commandments to Gentiles, that how is it, and gave this letter to Paul in his hand, and told Paul to take this to all his Gentile folks. After Paul then turned around and said, you can eat whatever, you can do this, and there's no law. But all things are lawful, but not all things.
Again, they were given, they were given what they were supposed to not do, what they were supposed to do, and what they were not supposed to do. And they told them what they were not supposed to do. So my question, which is the burden of proof that's on you.
Now the burden of proof is on me. She's avoiding answering the question. I asked her a direct question that she can't answer. She give me some simple stuff about she eat at the supermarket and all of that, and then avoid the question by running to Paul. I'm going to tell you what Paul said. I'm going to tell you what Paul said. And you wonder why I call them pagan Paulinians? That's all they are, is Paulinians who practice Paulinity. That's it. They have no defense. They can't go to any other books in the Bible outside of something that they think Paul wrote. That's it. That's why they are called Paulinians. This is a test. This is a test. And this is the proof test that they are pagan Paulinians, that Paul is their God. So they twist his writings. They made a God out of Paul. They twist his writings to fit their antinomian doctrines. That's all they do. Watch it. Now, she just spent an hour and some minutes, and I'm closing. It should be about to come up maybe 10 minutes here. Once we get to the Sister Remy that gives it out plain, the one that calls herself, you know, chastising me or something, making a fool of herself as well. Once we get there, then we'll go ahead and end it. But now I wanted you to see the shift. So these guys have spent the hour telling us how Paul didn't teach these, that these rumors were unfounded, that they lied on Paul. You remember that? Brother Garcia was in. Oh, these were rumors that nobody ever proved that. Well, Sister Cherry is about to prove that right here. Just like G-Con did, just like So Real did. All of these apologists, they did the same thing. They lied, said Paul didn't teach it, but he did. And then they said, or they either said he did teach it and then come back and say that he didn't in the same session. In the same session. Let me show you.
Because you're saying the laws of Moses, just like those Judaizers try to tell them back then. So I would ask you, find me in that list or anywhere where it says that they must be circumcised and any of the rest of that other stuff that was in the laws of Moses. Yeah.
Okay. There's no commandment for the Gentiles to be circumcised.
So why you pushing it? Why you pushing it? Because you pushed it in this video.
Now, this is a flat out lie right here. The sister is really going to show her true colors here. She has no defense to the argument, the biblical based argument. So now this is called the ad hom. She's going to bring up and tell a lie on me, a flat out lie, something that she know I didn't say, which is that I'm trying to teach circumcision to Gentiles. Now, she says she watched the video 3 or 4 times, and they actually played it 3 or 4 times prior to her making this statement. And she's going to tell you guys, watch it. I'm going to let you guys hear it.
Yes, you did. Oh, yes, you did. You pushed it in the video. So why you pushing it? Why in the laws of Moses? Yeah.
Okay. There's no commandment for the Gentiles to be circumcised.
So why you pushing it? Why you pushing it? Because you pushed it in this video. Yes, you did. Oh, yes, you did. You pushed it in the video. You said, and I quote you. You told Surreal, no, because I listened to it 3 times, and all of us listened to it. Hold on. You quote, and I will quote you, that you told Surreal, you said, yeah, and the Christian doctrine is telling people that they don't need to be circumcised when the law says that they need to be circumcised, and that's a heretical doctrine. Those were your words. So you're doing the same thing that the Pharisees and the Sadducees did. And guess what? Paul got pissed off about that.
So she's lying, saying that I said that Gentiles have to be circumcised. Now, I said several times, and when she played it, if you guys go back, several times they played me going through Acts chapter number 17. In the very beginning of this session, I told So Real, I said for Hebrews. I stated that several times, for Hebrews to be circumcised. But she's going to take this lie. Now she can't deal with the Bible-based argument and the reality that Christianity, Pauline Christianity, actually conflicts the Bible and actually conflicts the apostles' doctrines and their orders, you know, as I illustrated. So now she has to make up lies and spread rumors to her thousands of I think she got 400 or something folk or whatever that she has that zombies that listen to her, you know. So she's a liar, and here's proof of it.
He expressed this anger back in Galatians. So what are you talking about? Because you're doing the same thing that got Paul pissed off. They were never told to be circumcised. And then you took your little raggedy behind up there to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 18. But you didn't know. In fact, you started at 19. You didn't read number 18. Where Paul literally quoted, he said, listen, if you circumcised, be circumcised. If you uncircumcised, be uncircumcised. For circumcision and uncircumcision doesn't profit, but being a servant of Christ, that's what counts. You left that out. You deceitful lying snake. You
hear this? So now the deceitful lying snake. Now let me show you who's really the deceitful lying snake. I told you about the projection and the magic that these folks and the witchcraft that they deal with. Now watch this. Watch it. Now let's see who's being deceptive. Let's see what 1 Corinthians chapter number 7 and 19 says.
Be circumcised. If you uncircumcised, be uncircumcised. For circumcision and uncircumcision doesn't profit, but being a servant of Christ, that's what counts. You left that out.
Being a servant of Christ. Now, I just tell her that the text don't say anything about being a servant of Christ. This is called manipulation. She purposely twisted the word, the same thing that she's lying, accusing me of. What's all of this yelling and screaming is trying to keep you guys from the fact that she's lying about. Let them, first of all, the 18th verse does not change what's going on in the 19th verse. So that's just a bunch of distraction and all of that to make you think that she knows what she's talking about. Then she says, it says circumcision is nothing and uncircumcision is nothing, but to be a servant of God. You see that? You see that? I'm going to let y'all hear it again, and then I'm going to show y'all the translations and see if any of the translations translated it like she just lied and said that it said. So she purposely changed it from keeping the commandments of God. She didn't want to say that, so she's going to twist the scripture and leave that out so that she can, so that it can seem like that she's substantiating her theology.
You deceitful lying snake. Being a servant of Christ, that's what counts. If you uncircumcised, be uncircumcised. For circumcision and uncircumcision doesn't profit, but being a servant of Christ, that's what counts. You left that out. You deceitful lying snake.
Okay, we're coming up to the end here, but now I want to show you guys this. It's easy for you guys to get to. I don't try to go to all my deep resources when I do these videos. I try to give you guys things that you could do and that you could use and that you can access. This is Blue Letter Bible. Blue Letter Bible is free. Type it in. Go to 1 Corinthians 7:19, and they have something called a translation comparison. Now, we're going to go through these translations and see if anywhere any other of these scholars that did these translations says that it's anything remotely like circumcision is nothing and uncircumcision doesn't profit, but to be a servant of God, right? Right? She's afraid of those commandments, right? So she's going to twist that. She knows that this text is the nail in the coffin for her because this is Paul actually telling Gentiles to keep the law. The Corinthians was written to Gentiles, right? To Gentiles, to the Gentile folk. And so in this text here, right here, it says, but the keeping of the commandments of God. She did not want to say that because it would be her admitting that and confirming that Paul taught Gentiles to keep the commandments, right? So she switched this and changes it to, but being a servant of God. And at the same time, call me a lying, deceitful snake, devilish snake, when in fact, it is her that's being the lying, deceitful, devilish snake, as I've proven consistently throughout this series. I'm almost done.
Oh, wow. I said that to your face. You want to come up on a panel so I can really say it?
Now, you see the devil coming out? Because she can't answer these questions. That's just like Stephen, y'all. If you read, I think it's the 6th chapter of the book of Acts, Stephen was giving the Pharisees the business. He was giving them the business. Oh, y'all think y'all know the law? Well, the law speak about the Christ, and y'all killed the Christ. That means y'all don't know the law. They could not deal with the brothers' biblical acumen, and so what they did is jumped on them. They couldn't even wait to just stone them like normal folks do. They jumped on them and started biting them and all that. These are these demons coming out of these folks. The demons and devils do not like the word of God. They do not like truth. Now, this is not a person that has the Spirit of God, because the Spirit of God would submit to the truth. These folks, or at least said, well, let me think about it. Well, let me see. No, these folks are purposely using deception. She knows very well what this scripture says, but she's going to take it and switch from keep the commandments of God to being a servant of God, which it means the same thing, but she's using it to take from the fact that it says commandments of God flat out, that Paul was teaching Gentiles to keep the law. So, which kills her theory. We watch.
I ain't surreal. I'm real. I ain't polite at all. Because I don't like liars.
Well, that's outside of the scripture.
That ain't outside the scripture. That's what your behind did.
She don't like liars, but she done told several lies throughout this. Flat out lies. I was teaching. The video is on my timeline on the whatever, the YouTube. It's posted on the YouTube. You guys can go take a look at it. I never even once insinuated that Gentiles have to keep circumcision. So she flat out lied. This is what they do when they can't answer the question and when they're exposed. This is what they do. They lie. They be deceptive. Then they get all irate and start acting like irrational animals, right? Like ravening wolves that we read about in Matthew chapter number 7, that these folks, they look like sheep. She got a program, a Christian program. She says she's Christian. She know how to say praise Jesus. She came on here talking about peace and blessings, brother. As soon as I got on, she knows she wasn't about no peace. She told you she start fights 95% of the time. I'm not yelling and screaming at her. I'm not calling her names. All I'm doing is sticking to the scriptures and trying to get her to do the same. Actually sticking to these Bible verses here and trying to get her to do the same. And she's failed to do so. So now the carnal nature, those demons is starting to come out and manifest themselves.
We just didn't get to it yet. And everybody about to see your words out of your mouth. That's what you said. That's what you said. You thought ain't nobody gonna call it, but that's exactly what you said. That came out your mouth.
The Bible says I have to have my turn to defend myself.
Yeah, go ahead and defend yourself, because you ain't got no defense.
Okay, cool.
You ain't got no position. You ain't got no argument. You ain't got no defense. All you got is a bag full of lies.
And that's, see what I mean? This is exactly the opposite. Is projection. They have no position because they say Paul taught it, and she's about to show you. I want to get to that part, and then I promise. I'm bad with the timing and misjudging. I will let you guys go, but I have to show you guys this, where she's getting ready to show you that Paul. She believes Paul is teaching these things, but she's calling me the lying devil that has no argument when their argument is non sequitur, is duplicitous, is dualistic. It affirms that Paul did teach that he didn't teach these things, that he denied that he did teach these things, and affirms that he did, all at the same time. So the only person that don't have an argument, the only people that don't have an argument, and I've proven that, is Pauline Christianity. No argument. This is why she's running. Remember, we're still 15 minutes in or whatever it is after I've asked her, why is there a difference between Pauline Christianity and the Bible, the apostolic doctrine, an example of which we find in Acts chapter number 15 and Acts chapter number 21. Because she cannot answer these questions, she started ranting and raving, and you're seeing the demons manifest. She's yelling and screaming now. She's avoiding answering the questions. She's cutting me off, being disrespectful, passing out carnal threats. Come up to the platform and I'll do this because I'm not polite, which the scripture says follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord. But the Bible says that, but she's lawless. She don't follow the Bible. She don't follow anything. They follow what they want to follow, their own wickedness. This is evil wickedness.
Is that my brother Surreal?
No, that was me. Sorry, go ahead. Okay, so now back to the text. First Corinthians, what you stated in 18 didn't change in 19. It just reiterated and added. It didn't say servant of Christ. It said keep the commandments, even in the original Greek, which I'm able to go into first and foremost. Second of all, Romans is more than just Corinthians. Romans was also written to the Gentiles, and it's one of Paul's greatest works, and it just is insistent and just murderous with the doctrines of Christianity, because it starts you off in the second chapter, and it tells you somewhere between the 13th and the 15th verse, and he talks about the Gentiles now. He said, they that keep the law shall be justified, right? And then you get over to Romans 3 and 31. So you might be able to try to, because I don't.
You said those that keep the law may be.
Another distraction, trying to start another argument to keep from answering the question. I see you, Anointing for Life. I appreciate you coming on the chat and all of that, and watching the video. And you asked the question, yo, Sam, are you against Paul or just them? I'm against them. They lied on Paul. Paul didn't teach these things. That's my position, and that's been my position. I appreciate you tuning in. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell button for me so you can get updates. I'm proving that these guys lied on Paul is what I'm actually doing. They're liars. They lied on Paul just like she went and lied on me. Sam said that Gentiles have to be circumcised. It's the same thing that was going on in Acts chapter number 15. Folk lying on Paul, taking his words out of context and trying to run off and make them fit their narrative or their fairy tale that they're spinning. And so this is what they're doing. I am not against Paul. I am a fan of Paul. He is one of my favorite apostles. And what my favorite book in the Bible outside of Torah is the book of Romans.
Justified, that's what you said? So the law justifies you? So the law justifies.
Second argument now, because she don't have, so she's steady changing the subject. Now she's gonna go back to yelling and screaming. I'm trying to get this done. I'll get to this Remy sister, and I'm gonna end it with that.
No, I'm asking you a question. Does the law justify us in God's eyes? Huh? Does the law justify us in God's eye?
Does the law justify us in God's eye is not an answer to why Pauline Christianity teaches doctrines that are against Acts 15. I want you guys to take note of that. She has no answer. She's been filibustering, cussing, fussing, changing the subject, redirecting, all to keep from answering these questions. So when they put you guys on these platforms and stuff like that, they want to get you guys on. My suggestion is don't get into the deep stuff. Don't go all off into who the Edomites are and who the true people are and all that other kind of stuff. Just stick with this doctrine. The Bible condemns Pauline Christianity, as I showed you guys. Stick with this Acts 15. Stick with that Acts 21, and you will see these folks start losing folk in droves, more so than what there already is now, because they do not have. Please share. Be sure to like the video. Be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell button so you can get updates. And you know, just pass this word on so to help other followers of the way show and prove how unbiblical Christianity is, you know, and she's proven that here. And my screen went blank here again. So as soon as I get it up here, we'll continue. Here we go.
Okay, so share.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, brother.
Can I ask you a question? In Acts 10, listen to me. Listen to me here. In Acts 10, did God circumcise them before he saved them?
Now, do you guys see this? I just told them I don't teach circumcision to Gentiles. He's talking about the Gentile Cornelius, asking because they have no argument. So now they want to take the whole discussion off and talking about some circumcision Cornelius. That's a straw man argument. You're arguing against an argument that I have not made. That's what that is. That's a straw man argument to distract from the fact that you guys have no answers to these questions that's going to make any logical sense whatsoever, and not expose you guys to be exactly like I said, you guys, pagan Paulinian idolaters, and your pagan Pauline theology is heresy.
In Acts 2, did he circumcise them first before he saved them?
Acts what? I didn't hear this.
Acts chapter 10. Did God circumcise Cornelius before when he saved him?
Listen, once again.
Answer the question, sir.
Straw man argument.
No, that ain't no straw man argument.
Watch the demons.
It's the same answer. Did he tell them had to be circumcised? He saved them first. I'm hollering. Circumcised. If God saved them, who are you to decide what to add to? If God saved them, who is James and them to add something to?
You see it? Pagan Paulinians. Who is James? James is the brother of Jesus, dude. Who the heck is Paul? You see what I mean? You see what I mean? Who is James? James? Who? I told you guys, this is proof. I showed you guys earlier, Cherry with her. Paul said, when she got, let me show you what Paul said. And on this dude, who is James? Oh, he's only the brother of Jesus. So if anybody I would listen to as far as what Jesus' message really was, it would be his brother. Secondarily, you had Peter there at the council, and all the folks that actually walked with Christ, talked with Christ, had Christ breathed on them, right? Right? I told you guys they were Paulinians, and I would prove it. Pagan Paulinians. Who is James? Did you hear him? Who are you, and who is James, right? Who is James? James was the head of the council. He must have been so important enough that he was the head of the council at Jerusalem, that he had the final decision, and Paul had to run his doctrine by James, right? James called Paul on the carpet, right? Nonsense.
Who is James? God already saved him. Go read the first part of Acts 15. It plainly says, we know we are saved by grace through faith. Go read it. Oh, that's right. You skipped over that already.
Can I answer this real quick? Can I answer this? Do I have the biblical? Can I exercise my biblical Old Testament?
You ain't got no biblical standpoint from what I'm saying. Because look, I real quick, I want to read something.
More interruptions.
To you, it's Paul said here. Hold on. Paul said it's mighty funny that you skipped this. Paul said here in 1 Corinthians. Hold on, Paul.
Now here she goes. Now we're ending this. I thought it was a little bit closer than this. Now they spent all this time telling you guys that Paul didn't teach this, right? Paul didn't teach this. Watch.
Paul said here in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 25. Hold on, shut your mouth for a second. Whosoever is sold in shambles that eat, asks no questions for conscience sake. For the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. If any of them that believe not you to a feast, or basically, invite you to a feast, and ye be disposed to go. Whosoever is set before you, eat and ask no questions for conscience sake. But if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols, eat not for his sake that shows it, and for conscience sake, for the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. Conscience, I say not thine own, but of the other. For why is it my liberty to judge of another man's conscience? Like Paul telling them, don't ask. He goes further. He goes further.
Paul telling them don't ask. James said you need to be concerned about it. But that's not Paul. She don't believe that Paul taught those things in there. They denied that Paul taught those things. You see the contradiction? Obvious contradiction. These Pauline Christian apologetics and theology is dead.
I didn't write this. Paul wrote this.
Paul.
I didn't write this. And then I'm gonna get you on something else too. I'm gonna get you on let me jump a little bit ahead. I'm not.
She gonna get me on something else and still haven't even answered the question because they can't.
I'm jumping. Did you say out of your own mouth, and to a lot of people on this panel, they didn't hear this, so they might cut your face off. Did you say that Timothy and Ephesians is pseudo books?
Excuse me? That's what he said. Quick question.
Okay, we're ending it here. Now watch this Remy sister. She's about to put me in my place, and I'm gonna love to be there as well. She's gonna expose the true fruits of pagan Paulinity. Watch. And I'm done. I'm gonna close with that.
Okay. If that's the case, are you saying that all scripture is not God breathed? Are you saying that you don't hold to the scriptures of God? Are you saying that God's word is a lie? Is that what you said?
Do you want to hear the answer, or do you just want to be?
Well, if you would like to hear the whole question, maybe you would have a full understanding of what I'm asking you before you answer the question. Are you saying that God's word is a lie, sir?
My point of view.
So my point of view don't matter, to be 1,000%.
My point of view don't matter, but you asking me for my point of view, and then when I'm trying to give it, you cutting me off and all of that other kind of stuff. You see the nonsense of these people? This is pure confusion. And where there's confusion, there's every evil work. People are workers of iniquity, workers of evil, and they're ignorant. They are naturally ignorant. They are not educated whatsoever. They can't even read the passage of the script, and they can't even identify certain subject, verbs, and predicates. They have a problem with that. But you're trying to be condescending and trying to rebuke me and correct me, which is the title of this thing. Now watch this sister. Now watch her with all her nonsense.
Honest with me, God's point of view is what matters to me. But first of all, second of all, I don't care what you got to say. I'm asking you a specific question: is yes or no? Are you saying that God's word is a lie?
No, God's word.
Okay, so how you gonna fix your lips to say any of the scriptures is actually pseudo anything? Because 2 Timothy 3 verse 16 and 17 is against you right now, sir. That's first things first. Second about it is, fix your lips and make that type of lie. You already know you got the wrong one over here.
Calling me a lie.
First of all, I just told her that I didn't subscribe to that. I'm calling God a liar or his word a liar or whatever that she's saying anyway. I'll get into her stuff later. I just want to get to this one part where she just totally just lets the game out the bag.
I'm calling you a bald-faced liar. I'm calling you a dog, a liar. Flesh. That's exactly what I'm calling you. You got a problem with that?
Look at the demons coming out of these folks. This is Christ-like. Look at these demons and these devils coming. This word is eating at them. They have no defense. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 folk on this panel, and none of them have pastors and apologists and super Christians, and none of them can answer these questions. The only thing they can do is cuss and fuss, threaten to do this, that, and the other, and make a bunch of nonsensical statements. Now listen to this, sister.
Because the scriptures call you that, and the scriptures also say, don't take anything away from the scripture and don't add to it. That's what the word said. So you gonna say God is a liar still? So you gonna lie and say God is a liar still, fool? Fix your lips and say that. I double dog dare you to say that. Huh?
That's what I said. So get straight and go get educated.
So you say, did he say Paul was a liar? But didn't he just quote Paul?
See what I mean? I never said Paul is a liar. I say y'all lying on Paul. So they twist stuff up. They have hearing problems, reading problems, and they certainly dipping and dabbling in witchcraft. That's what they're doing. And I'm going to, like I said, for you guys, I'm going to be going into that in a session. Also, I'm not making it just about these guys. They're just... they just gave me 24 hours of stuff to go through, and they put my name in their mouths. So I had to show you guys and clear up my position because they're liars. So that's the reason for these sessions and things of that nature, to establish my point and to show and prove that these guys are lying, deceitful, duplicitous devils. That's why. And you guys have seen that. As soon as this word come out, like the Exorcist, you start seeing them going through all kinds of convulsions and everything else. They cannot deal with that word.
You just quote Paul that player? Didn't you just quote Paul though? So how is Paul a liar and you just quoted Paul? Fool. Nah, go ahead, fool. You just quoted Paul, but you gonna say Paul is a liar?
I said Paul is a liar several times. See how they get stuff started and take stuff and twist stuff and all of that? These folks are deceitful devils.
Huh? 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 Reading is so fundamental. Yes, God. And
now I hung up at this point because it's too much confusion going on. These guys go back and forth, and where there's confusion, there's every evil work. I see at this point that they're not going to answer the question. They're going to continue on with this red herring stuff and all yelling and being loud and being nasty and evil and ignorant and all of that other kind of stuff instead of answering the question, because they can't. So we're going to get to the end of what this sister says. When she say that, I'm going to end this video.
Another thing that's also wonderful is whenever Y'all, God, Yahawashi, God of embarrassment. He sure is embarrassing you right now. I know you done messed. You know you done messed up, right?
I guess he hung up.
Can I just read an Old Testament?
Yes, sir.
Right? Yeah. So you gonna fix your lips and say something wrong like that, huh?
He'll probably be back.
He'll probably be back.
He gotta lick his wounds and go get water so he can clear his throat. All right, so we're gonna go. I'm gonna go to Exodus chapter 48. And if you guys could please,
I think that it's 1:18.
Yes.
So the crowd can follow.
What did you say, brother?
7-9.
And to keep
Basically, they keep the no high law, and then like Remy.
I'm trying to get to the part. Here we go.
You have no point.
That's right.
There's no requirement to Gentiles to keep anything.
Oh, you hear that? That's Brother Remy. My bad. I thought it was the sister. There's no requirement for Gentiles to keep anything, right? Nothing. Nothing Paul said, nothing Peter said, nothing Jesus said, nothing. Nothing in the Bible does these people have to keep. That's how they think. They could do whatever they want to do. They are not subject to anything. That's why they can lie, be deceitful, work witchcraft, and all that other kind of stuff, and get away with it. That's why they think they can sit up. They think you guys are fools. All the pagan Paulinians sitting under them, they think they are fools because they can sit up here and tell you guys anything, tell you guys that Paul didn't say this, but he did say this, tell you guys and make lies up on folks, you know, instead of dealing with the issues. That's what they do, proving themselves to be demons and devils, you know. But I'm going to go ahead and end this. We'll pick this up with part 4. I think I'm done with these cherry folks. I want to get on to some other things and get into some teaching here and show you guys their doctrine. So I'll be picking certain things out. I don't know if I'll continue on because this is, I have a severe headache right now, just even listening to this sister and her nonsense. And these folks, as you guys see, they do not, we are an hour and 20 minutes and they still have yet to answer the question. They're being very ignorant and condescending. This is the fruit of your Christianity. You shall know them by their fruit. This is the fruit of it. They don't have to obey Jesus. They don't have to obey James. They don't have, who is Jesus? Who is James? Who is Peter? You know, we got Paul. Paul said, right? And then they get upset when you call them pagan Paulinians. You know, when they get upset and then they make the lie on you and say you hate Paul, you speak against Paul, you teach people, Gentiles to be circumcised. This is what they do when they can't answer those questions, right? So for you followers of the way out there, this is another receipt demonstrating the crash and burn is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 of these folks up there, and none of them can answer these questions directly. None of them is telling this sister that she's out of order for being loud, obnoxious, ignorant, and contentious, right? Nobody's, well, actually, let me not say that. I did hear the pastor dude that was speaking to her in the beginning tell her, stop getting loud and stop screaming. But she didn't even listen to him. But that's her pastor. She fake act like she was submitting in the beginning. Oh, can I say this? False humility, hypocrisy. She really don't respect that brother. She really don't respect him. He told her several times that her behavior is not Christ-like. He really did. She ignored him. You know why? Because she's lawless. She don't have to obey anyone. And that's the fruit of your pagan Paulinity. Now I'm closing this. We're going, well, I'm not even going to go there because I keep telling you guys I'm going to close. This video is long. Matthew chapter number 7 says, ye shall know them by their fruit. And what we've been doing is inspecting these folks' fruit by what the text actually says. We're inspecting their behaviors about, you know, and comparing that to the life and teachings of the Mashiach, whom the world calls Christ. Like I said, I appreciate everyone coming out. Those of you guys that haven't already done so, please go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and also click the bell so that you can get updates. Please keep a lookout for Strong Delusion Ministry or Magic Minister or Magician. Once again, and that's coming out. We'll have that coming out in the week. So you certainly want to go ahead and subscribe. And we'll be going to the external evidence, which proves these guys to be practicing witchcraft and not actually, it has nothing to do with the spirit of the Most High. So look out for that. We appreciate, once again, everyone coming out. We appreciate the Most High giving us grace, space, and time. We appreciate even the those that don't agree with us, the Pauline Christians that came out and listened, even the ones that scouring this video so that they can have something to talk about or what have you. We appreciate you as well, because you keep me on my toes. So with that being said, look out for the death of Pauline Christian Apologist and Theology, part number 4. I'm not sure when we will be doing that, so certainly you want to subscribe and hit the bell. Peace.